Our conversation is about how we hold the power to disrupt one of the biggest health disparities in our country today. I'm speaking about uh, blood stem cell transplant, a procedure that cures more than 70 life-threatening diseases, and where unfortunately the disparities of rates for people of color is alarming. For our discussion, I'd like to introduce two incredible advocates. First is Christine Mantaya, who works on behalf of Be the Match. Her work there is about communicating the mission for optimal access for health for all. She works throughout Southern California to steadily grow the largest and most diverse registry in the world. Welcome, Christine. Annika Matar is a student planning her future who, because of a blood stem cell transplant, is now a survivor of cancer. Welcome, Annika. Christine?
Thank you so much for that welcome, Natalie. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so that we can dig into this topic together. So let me do this. All right, everyone. So thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with us this afternoon. As Natalie said, I'm Christine Mantia, and I'm here representing Be the Match, which is the world's largest and most diverse blood stem cell donor registry. And as Natalie shared, we have some amazing news, which is that blood cancers like leukemia and lymphoma and other life-threatening diseases like sickle cell and aplastic anemia are curable. And that cure is a blood stem cell transplant. So together we're going to break down how our blood can hold the cure for cancer and other life-threatening diseases. And we'll also open up a bit of a dialogue to discuss how we can go about the work of democratizing cellular therapy to ensure equal outcomes for all patients. So before we dive in, I want to get a little support from technology. So there are two steps here. If you could complete, that would help us out throughout the presentation. So the first thing is to go ahead and send that text message. So the message itself is Bruins for Life, just as you see it written there. And you're going to send that to 61474. So you'll receive a link that in a reply, and we'll circle back to that link a little bit later on in the presentation. And then once you've done that, if you're on your computer, open up another tab in your browser or go on your phone and go to mentee.com. And this is a platform for those of you that haven't used it before that allows us to have interaction and see some of our responses as a community so that we can evaluate where we stand together and share our points of view. So once you go to mentee.com, it'll ask you for a code and you'll just type in that code that you see right there, 8663. 084. And then we'll have some questions incorporated throughout our time together. So here's an overview of this journey that we're going to take. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my personal heritage, a little more about the science behind how this transplant works and what that cure consists of. We'll talk about the inequities that we're facing right now and the things that we're doing to overcome them. Annika, our special guest, is going to share her personal story in battling aplastic anemia. And then we're going to talk about a few actions that we can take to make a difference. So this is me. I am the account manager for Southern California. I'm a Peruvian American. I'm a millennial and a woman, and I want to share with you a little bit about my own history before we talk about who we are as a community. So this is my heritage. My full traditional name is Christine Marimandia Luque, and I am full-blooded Peruvian. So Peru is a country on the west coast of South America. Both of my parents that you see right there in the middle with the New Year's hat, they grew up and were born in Lima, Peru, which is the capital. And then they immigrated to the US together after they were married. So I am the first of my family born here in the US. And when I first learned about Be the Match, I was first very surprised that I didn't already know there was a cure for blood cancer. And then the second thing that I learned about it was this disparity that ethnically diverse patients face in accessing their cure. So once I learned about that, I felt really compelled to take action. And as a first generation American, the mission of Be the Match feels really personal to me. So we're going to talk a little bit more about ethnic heritage as we go through through our presentation today, and so you'll see how it's all connected. So here's our first mentee question, which is, think about who you are in the world. Think about the identities that you see when you look in the mirror every day. And when you go to mentee.com and enter that code, you should see this same question there that you can start responding to. So let me go ahead and click to our mentee. And I'll just give you guys a moment to respond. And you know, one of the things that I want to acknowledge as well as you guys are putting in your answers is each of you are experts in your own communities. So whether that be, you know, your alma mater, right, being a Bruin, your faith community, sports that you play, the industry or profession that you belong to, these all contribute to the person that you are in the world and your point of view. And so it's important that we keep that in mind as we continue to go through this conversation. Starting to see some responses trickle in here.
We'll be faster on the next question, promise.
That's all right. I can wait for a moment. I love to see when we ask this question the mix of words that we choose to describe ourselves. And it's interesting because we do tend to see a mix of things that maybe have to do with our appearance, then some things that have to do with our heritage, where we come from. I love words of empowerment like happy, confident, trailblazer. And all of those things are, you know, what make us who we are. And it's also interesting to think about, how do we present that to the world, right? How, if I just see you walking down the street, how do you present something like trailblazer? So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and click back to our presentation now. All right. So as I said in the beginning, Be the Match is the world's largest and most diverse blood stem cell donor registry, and we help patients in need of a life-saving transplant find a genetically matched stem cell donor. So let's go ahead and take a look at the science here. So bones might seem rock solid, but they actually contain marrow. So that's a spongy substance made up of fat and other supportive tissue, and most importantly, stem cells. Blood stem cells, you can think of them as like the blood factory of the body. So they can differentiate into all the different components of healthy blood, as you see in the image there. And they send hundreds of billions of new blood cells into circulation every day. So the way life-threatening blood diseases often begin is with genetic mutations in the stem cells that result in malignant blood cells. So just a small population of healthy blood stem cells from a genetically matched donor can regenerate a whole body's worth of healthy marrow in a patient. And that's how we cure them of their life-threatening disease. And this is where that ethnic heritage comes into play. So donors and patients are based on HLA type, or human leukocyte antigen type. And these are inherited genetic factors. So patients are most likely to match with a donor that shares their ethnic background. And less than 3 in 10 patients will have a match in their family. So most patients, 70%, will need to rely on the registry to find an unrelated donor. And here's a unique challenge that we're facing. As the world and the population in the US becomes more and more diverse, people are increasingly multi-ethnic, and they may not even know the full story of their heritage, their ethnic heritage. So while I'm most likely to match with a Latinx person, we've also seen Asian and white matches, Latino and Hawaiian matches, and other combinations. And on average, only 1 in every 430 people on the registry will ever come up as a match. So again, this underscores the importance of having as many people on the registry as possible. And then as you see in the image there are 2 ways that a donor can provide those stem cells to a patient. The most common way is through a PBSC donation, which is a special type of blood donation. So if you think about the last time you had your blood drawn, but instead you imagine yourself in a big comfy recliner with a line in each arm, That peripheral blood stem cell donation is non-surgical, so it's a process called apheresis, and it basically takes only the stem cells that are needed for the patient from one arm and returns the rest of your blood to you through the other arm. So donors can sometimes have headaches and a little bit of muscle ache or discomfort, but it typically disappears immediately after donation, and people are back to their routine in about 1 to 2 days. So that's 80% of the time. Now, a lot of you may have heard about bone marrow transplants or bone marrow donation, and there are quite a few misconceptions out there about it. I had a student tell me recently that they thought it involved removing part of your femur. That is not correct. So let me set that record straight. About 20% of the time, a donor may be asked to provide marrow. And this type of donation does take place in a hospital operating room because the donor is under anesthesia, so they don't feel any pain or discomfort during the procedure. But it's outpatient, so you go home the same day. And then doctors collect that marrow from the back of the pelvic bone using a specialized syringe. So after donation, donors may feel some soreness in their lower back, but they're typically back to their routine in about 2 to 7 days. And even though this type of donation nowadays is very infrequent, it's only about 20% of the time, it's a really important option for patients who need a more concentrated form of stem cells. And that could be because their condition is critical, or in some cases because the patient is a child. And doctors request donors within that 18 to 44 age range about 86% of the time. And that's because younger donors in most cases can give patients a better odds of survival. But if you're over 44 years of age, you can still register, and you will remain active on the registry until your 61st birthday. So here's the problem, and this is something that Natalie called out when we got started here. Cancer does not discriminate, but cancer care and treatment options do. Life-threatening blood diseases affect patients of all ages, all ethnic backgrounds, all sexualities, gender identities, across socioeconomic conditions. But what we find is that based on the current makeup of the donor registry, a patient's odds of finding a match vary dramatically. So if you're white, you have that 77% chance, which means out of 10 people diagnosed, 7, maybe 8 will find a match, and 2 or 3 may not. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you are a Black or African American patient, you only have a 2 out of 10 chance. So there are a number of reasons that these disparities exist, but the bottom line is that it's a numbers game. The majority of people who have registered as potential donors are white. So in order to resolve this, we need to diversify the registry. And so, let me switch this question out for you on Mentee. It's really important, I think, for us to acknowledge the cultural moment that we're living in, right? And our day-to-day reality. So here on Mentee, I want to invite you to share some words that describe feelings or thoughts that come to mind upon learning a little bit more about this disparity. You know, a lot of people are taking the time nowadays to learn a little bit more about inequities of all kinds. And this can lead to some really strong feelings, some tough realizations. And I want to be respectful of that. So I think it also just helps to know how other people are feeling, right? And that we're not alone in how we're interpreting things. And that also strengthens us in terms of coming together and taking action. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, how, and even for myself, right, as a Latina, as a first generation American, and as someone who, you know, I was very fortunate. I got to have a great education. I went to private school, and then I went to USC. Sorry, guys. So, you know, I had resources, right? I had resources. I was very well educated. I was aware. I had parents who were extremely supportive about you know, just being aware of social issues and how you can make a difference in the world. And it wasn't until well into my adult life that this issue is something that I learned about. And so that's one of those things. It's like, okay, well, now that I know, right, and even though I may feel frustrated and disappointed and let down, how can we change it? So that's kind of where we're going to head as we talk about this a little bit more. And thank you so much for sharing your feelings about that. So let's get back to our presentation here. So I did want to call this out, right? That words are not enough. We can talk about this disparity all day long, and we can try to educate people and raise awareness, but if we're not putting action behind our words, then what are we really doing? So these are just some of the initiatives that Be the Match has committed to as far as really trying to address this health inequity that is plaguing populations of color. So we want to double the number of lives saved in underserved populations. We're tracking to hit our goal of 10,000 lives impacted, Black and African American lives impacted this year. So we're really thrilled about that as far as being able to really be out in the community and register more diverse donors. We're increasing awareness. We're putting some money into the community as well in the form of paid internships and other opportunities so that people can learn about it and go out into their own communities as ambassadors. And we're looking into community and civic partnerships that we can use to raise our mission, raise awareness of our mission as well. So, let me switch here. So with all the science and all these larger social issues involved, sometimes it's really easy to forget that our mission about saving lives is really about individuals. It's about real people just like us that are affected with these cancers and diseases that are life-threatening, and they have to see themselves through, and hopefully with the help of a donor. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Annika, who is a brilliant young woman and who has generously agreed to share her story with us today. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Annika.
Hello, so my name is Annika Mather, and today I'm going to share with you the story behind my marrow transplant. I was diagnosed with aplastic anemia in May of 2019, and I got my transplant this February. Next slide. So my life before diagnosis. This was my life before aplastic anemia. I was always busy with clubs in school and sports outside. I had been learning Indian classical dance for 9 years, and I was supposed to take part in a big recital in June of 2019. I got my black belt in Taekwondo 2 years ago, not long before the diagnosis. My hobbies at home included painting, crafting, and singing. I noticed something wrong when I started feeling unusually tired and got bad headaches towards the end of my junior year of school, but I ignored it, thinking it was from stress because of finals. I was told it was probably the flu or some common virus, so I was unsuspecting when I was called to the hospital for some blood work. And this happened 3 days before my finals. Next slide, please. So in May of 2019, I was diagnosed with aplastic anemia. I didn't think much of it because I thought the cause was an easily treatable iron deficiency and that I would just need supplements. So I was really surprised to find out that I would need to be at the hospital for a while. Turns out it's an autoimmune disease which attacks the bone marrow, preventing it from producing new blood. My initial treatment was called IST, or immunosuppressive therapy. This treatment is less invasive than a BMT, but the side effects I got from it ended up being much worse. Next. So my treatment and complications. I was given medicines to suppress my immune system in hopes that it would rebuild itself properly, but in the process, my low immunity caused a lot of trouble. I had infections in many parts of my body and it affected multiple organs. The worst was in my lungs, an infection called aspergillus, which had to be reduced with the help of 2 big surgeries. At the same time, I started my senior year of high school. I had to drop my plans of taking honors classes and took just enough credits to graduate. It was especially hard to focus, so staying in touch with friends and being included in the lives of others is one thing which really helped keep me happy through everything which was going on. I was in the hospital from June to October of 2019. Next. So coming home in October after being in the hospital for so long made me feel a lot better, even though I hadn't gotten much healthier. I was able to spend time with friends and family in a better environment than the hospital. This was a great experience for me because I was in isolation for a long time and could only talk to others over the phone most of the time. I was at home for about 2 months before I was told that my initial treatment wasn't completely effective, so I needed to move on to the next step, which was a bone marrow transplant. Next. So the search for a donor. I was very lucky to already have a donor who was in the system, but he needed to pass a series of tests to see if he was healthy enough to donate. Young donors are better because they're more likely to be healthier and have a better functioning marrow. Since we were not sure if my potential donor would be cleared, we held many drives all over the country and in India as well, and signed up hundreds of people in hopes of finding another candidate. The downside of us doing this last minute was that it would take months for people's results to come out to find out if I had another match. We didn't find a new one and settled on the donor I had, even though his requirements were not perfect. I was very lucky because he was my only match out of more than 37 million people in the world's registry. Some people find 3 to 4 matches who don't pass health requirements or decline to donate. In the US and Europe, becoming a donor is free, but some other countries require people to pay to sign up. This makes it much harder for people with non-European backgrounds to find donors, and some do not find a donor at all. Next. So my transplant. In February of 2020, I got my bone marrow transplant. I was admitted a week early for the preconditioning process. This included radiation, chemotherapy, and a procedure to put an access point in my neck where blood could be drawn and transfused through, which I still have. I lost my hair and I felt very tired during the whole process, and some longer lasting effects from the chemotherapy, like nausea, still haven't gone away even today. I was in the hospital for under close watch for a little over a month in total. There was a time period of 100 days after the transplant where I had to be extra careful and go in multiple times a week for checkups and transfusions, as I was still in the beginning stages of recovery. A new bone marrow can take several months or even up to a year to grow into your body and become fully functional. I'm only about 5 to 6 months in, and I will still need some more time. However, once the marrow starts up again, it's a permanent cure. Next. So post-transplant, I've been home since March and I'm making progress with recovery. My BMT saved my life and I was able to graduate high school on time with my class. I'll be attending college this fall and will be studying environmental science. Although I can't visit my friends or go outside right now, it's nice to know that everyone is being careful and taking precautions to be safe nowadays. Being in the middle of a global pandemic can show others a bit of what it's like to be immunocompromised and constantly having to be clean and distanced. I can be assured that my friends and family will understand how it is for me and many others because they have now also experienced it, and they will be more mindful when I ask them to wear masks and be careful. From my experience in the hospital, I learned that patience, resilience, and hope can get you through anything. Next slide. So my friends started a Be the Match on campus chapter at UCLA to raise awareness and grow the registry. Their support for me grew into a hope to find more people who would sign up to help others just like me, because you never know when someone who is close to you may suddenly need a donor to save their life. In the fall, I'll be starting at College of the Canyons and will be involved with a coalition of student clubs who are also dedicated to spreading the word about Be the Match. I'm looking forward to helping people sign up and save lives, just like somebody from across the world saved mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Annika. I so appreciate you sharing your story with us and being willing to be a little bit vulnerable in sharing that and sharing those images in support of our life-saving mission. And now I'm going to turn it back over to the group here on Mentee. Oops, let me get here. Let me get this next question set up for you guys. So while you share a little bit about the impressions that you had from listening to Annika's story, I want to share some of my impressions. And so one of the first things that really surprised me about Annika's story is how quickly she went from diagnosis to transplant. It all happened for her within a single year. And from what I've seen, patients, especially those who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, may end up waiting for years before they find a suitable match. So I consider it extremely fortunate that Annika was able to find a match and that her one match in the world was healthy enough to donate, agreed to donate, and is now enabling her recovery. Yeah, it is definitely encouraging to know that, you know, there are treatments available for diseases like the one that she was facing. And it's impressive that it's something that can be done in such a short amount of time, certainly. Yep. So as far as that matching, right, we talked about kind of the science of how that match happens. It's a specific set of genetic markers on chromosome 6, I believe. I can double check that, but it is extremely rare, right? Where if it's the average is 1 out of 430, we're talking about 0.2% chance that if you register, you'll get the opportunity to donate to a patient in need. So that really does underscore the importance of having as many people registered as possible. So thank you for participating in that. I'm going to go ahead and click back to our presentation here. All right, so here's the statistics again. And I'm bringing these up because it's important for us to remember that these are the odds of finding a match. So it's not that the cure doesn't exist. It's just that when you need to find a match, you may not be able to access it. So it's about equity of access. And even for white patients, the odds are not 100%, and they could be. So every single person on the registry matters and is a source of hope for patients who find themselves battling these life-threatening diseases. And I wanted to share with you as well the impact that UCLA and the Bruin community has specifically had. So since 2008, our partnership has yielded over 105,000 potential donors added to the registry. And as a result, 621 life-saving transplants have been performed. And that's current as of March of this year. And so, you know, we said the average is 1 out of 430. Well, from the Bruin population, partially because of the diversity of the community, maybe the age demographics of the community, many different factors, it's actually 1 out of 165 potential donors who will match with a patient in need. So it's incredibly important that we continue to invest in this partnership. And we're so grateful for the contributions that the Bruin community has made as far as giving hope to these patients and being able to literally save lives. So thank you for that. So for any of you who are wondering how to join the registry, it's really simple. We're going to circle back to that text message that you sent in the beginning and the link that you received. So if you go back to that link, you can create a profile. And if you're in good health and willing to donate to any patient in need, registering from home is safe and easy. You receive a cheek swab kit in the mail. It just takes 10 seconds to do that cheek swab kit. You drop it back in the mail and the postage is prepaid. If you're 18 to 44 years old, Be the Match covers the full cost of typing your sample. And if you're 45 or older, you can still register. Be the Match asks that you cover your own typing fee, and that's a tax-deductible cost of $100. And if you're not able to join the registry for any reason, you can still support Be the Match just by talking about it and raising awareness of this issue among your family and friends. And we also partner, as I mentioned earlier, with community organizations, corporations. We have civic partnerships that help to provide a variety of events and programs in support of our life-saving mission. So thank you so much for your attention. I want to now go ahead and open this up so that we can have a little bit of a dialogue. So you can submit questions via Mentee. I'm going to set that up for you now. And we'll come back to that screen in a moment. And I also have a question for you, which is, As the experts in your own communities, what should Be the Match be doing to spread awareness and grow the registry? And I'd love to hear your insights. So you can certainly submit them here. You can reach out to me directly. You can submit them on chat or submit them to Natalie. And those insights are always super important for us to be able to continue our work in the community and continue saving lives. So I'll give you guys a moment to submit any questions that you'd like me to cover. And again, thank you so much for your time and attention. Nat, were you just saying something, Natalie? What happens if you're a match for someone? So if you do come up as a potential donor for someone, typically you'll get a phone call that will ask if you are still willing to be evaluated to see if you could potentially move on to be a donor. At that point, you will typically go in for a physical and just to ensure that you are healthy enough. The safety of not only our patients, but also our donors is extremely important. So we want to make sure that anybody who is going to donate stem cells is in good health and able to do so. And then from that physical and blood draw, they're going to do some additional typing. So we're looking to see, as Annika mentioned, she only had one potential donor. But in other cases, people may have 3 or 4 or even more than that. And so then doctors can really pay attention to, okay, what's the full typing spectrum and what's the best possible match for this patient. So it may take a little bit of time to hear back whether or not you are the chosen donor for the patient. And then at that point, they're going to help to schedule your donation date. Most of the time it is that specialized blood draw that you would be committing to, but they will let you know who the patient is as far as age, their diagnosis, their ethnicity, and then you'll be able to move forward in that way. And something I do want to highlight is there is no cost for donation at any point. And we even have financial assistance, for example, if your work time is impacted, if you need childcare, travel costs, anything like that, we cover it. So there's never any cost to the donor. This is a great question. So we do require confidentiality or anonymity in the first year. So in the US, that's the regulation. It's pretty common around the world. There are a few places in the world where donors and patients are not allowed to meet. But for us, it's just that 1-year waiting period. And then if both parties consent, then you can meet each other or start corresponding. And if you ever need a little inspirational boost in the middle of your day, it's amazing to go and watch some of those donor patient recipient meetings. They're so inspiring, and a lot of lifelong friendships have formed from those meetings as well. This is an excellent question, and there is a lot of mistrust from the side of the Black community in terms of the medical field in general, for very good reason. And so one of the things that I can hold up as an example that we're doing is the Atlanta project. So our Be the Match Atlanta division has partnered with churches, certainly, but also with historically Black colleges and universities, with really trusted kind of bastions of that community, to make sure that we are being responsible and responsive to the community in terms of any types of fears, questions, doubts that may come up as we're talking about this type of volunteer act. Basically, donors are volunteers in the end, right? And so it's something that you're doing because it's the right thing to do. You're not getting financially compensated for that, although it's no cost to you. So absolutely, it's something that we take very seriously in terms of, you know, not just swooping in as an outsider, but really trying to build those relationships and build that trust over time. Thanks. Yeah, this is another great question. So, Be the Match does not require any information about sexuality or gender identity in terms of donating. So, there are no restrictions for the gay and queer community, men who have sex with men. There's no issue with that. And then we also remove barriers as much as we can as far as like citizenship. We don't ask for any information. So people who are undocumented can join the registry as well. We have many different languages that we support. So we really are trying to make it as easy as possible, as safe as possible, as comfortable, respectful as possible for every type of community to join the registry. This is a great question. So about 12,000 patients a year will be diagnosed and searching for a match. Right now, I believe we are going to end up at around 6,000 transplants performed this year, facilitated by Be the Match. So, you know, slowly but surely, we are increasing that number steadily year over year. But there are many patients who unfortunately do not find a match, and they are looking at other treatment options that may help to bide some time. But there isn't really another cure for the majority of the diseases that this treats. You know, I don't know about the flu shot. That's a really good question. I don't know if we've ever looked into that. We do tend to partner with blood drives quite a bit. So people who are donating blood will have the option of learning about the blood stem cell donation process. Part of it as well is that we do have some congressional funding, and we have to be very particular about respecting your personal information and not ever creating a situation in which someone may feel pressured to join. We really want to create something where people are educated and comfortable and choosing to join with the knowledge of what it really takes. But that's a really good idea. I want to look into that. Looks like some of your question was cut off, so I'll try to answer this. So there has been significant progress as far as diversifying the registry. We just, I think about 5 years ago, we were at about 19 million people on the national registry, and we're up to about 22.5 million now. And the diversity continues to increase over time, of course, and we're putting a focused effort on that. Some of the factors that have been successful in increasing the diversity in the registry have really been just being present in the community, right? So some of the reasons that the registry is overwhelmingly white is that recruiters, right, or Be the Match or other organizations haven't always been physically present in communities of color, in neighborhoods that are predominantly Black or Latino. And so we are really, we have 70 community engagement specialists in Southern California, and they're out in the community all the time. So that's expanded. It's doubled the number of representatives that we have in Southern California within the last 4 years, I believe. So it's something that is really about boots on the ground, right? So making sure that we are accessible, that we're present, that we are reflecting back to the community, what it is that they need to learn and need to know to be able to join the registry confidently and comfortably. And in terms of organizing drives, so I manage the Southern California territory, so I can support you in terms of setting up events, and either myself or one of our community engagement specialists will be present to support you in doing that. We also do virtual drives and virtual events like we're doing today. And we support a lot of patients that are searching as well and share their stories through social media and through the news outlets and things like that. So there are a variety of things that we can do, and I'm the right person to talk to for that. Let me unpack this question a little bit so I make sure that I answer it completely. How do we help grassroots orgs? Yeah, so I'll explain a little bit more about our structure that I just mentioned with community engagement specialists. So Be the Match is headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And across the country, we work with a number of different nonprofit organizations that are recruitment centers, donor centers, and that represent different populations and serve different populations. So for example, in Los Angeles, we work with A3M, which is Asians for Miracle Marrow Matches. And they specialize in having language support and community support for a variety of Asian communities, Chinese, Korean, Thai, Japanese, South Asian. And so they really are kind of the experts in the local communities for the Asian population. And so there are partners there. We also work with City of Hope, which does quite a bit in the Latino community and Spanish-speaking community. We work with the Icla de Silva Foundation as well, Lifestream and the Inland Empire. So we have a network of community organizations that we partner with so that, again, we have that presence in the communities directly. And yes, we do share donor stories and patient stories through interviews, through social media, through video, to demonstrate what that process looks like, and to show really what that life-changing donation can mean to someone. So that's how we do that in general. Yes, so we actually have a blood drive coming up on Saturday, on the 22nd. We partner with the UCLA Blood and Platelet Center, among other blood drive organizations. And so we will be at the Latter-day Saints Church, I believe, in Valencia this Saturday. And there are several other events upcoming as well, where you can do both. You can donate blood and you can speak to a representative from Be the Match and do your swabbing in person if you prefer to do that rather than doing it at home. I think we made it all the way through. I've been talking for a very long time, and I hope that I have answered all of your questions. Let's see. Was there anything else that came up in chat, Natalie, that we should address?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great.
I saw you talking earlier.
I know. I could hear me. No, I think that this covered it. And I know that folks put their questions in Mentee, so I think that also covered it. This has been incredibly informative. I want to just, again, open it up one last time. If anyone on the call has any questions, either for Christine or Annika, before we wrap up, please feel free to do so in the chat. I want to take the opportunity again to thank Annika for sharing her story. It was so inspirational and very special for me to hear. So thank you for that gift.
Thank you.
Christine, thank you for the wealth of information and your clear passion for the work and for equipping us with information on how we can be change makers and advocates of something that is curable, and that science and technology has advanced, but our access to information and know-how perhaps is lagging. So it's been an incredible conversation. I am not seeing any other questions. So thank you to both of you, Annika, Christine. Thank you for everyone who participated. As a reminder, this has been recorded and there will be links with more information both about the upcoming event on Saturday and areas that you can go to both to request a cheek swab and also to get more information about Be the Match. I encourage you to spread the word and consider ways that you can be a volunteer in this work. Thank you again to the Be the Match organization for their support of UCLA alumni and providing us with the opportunities for this event. Christine?
Thank you so much.
Annika? Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Take care now.